The midnight shift at St. Jude's private wing usually begins with a specific, rhythmic silence. It is a landscape of white tiles and hushed electronic chirps, a world where everything is sanitized, controlled, and predictable. My name is Elena, and for nearly a decade, I've worn these deep blue scrubs like a suit of armor. I've mastered the art of clinical detachment, the ability to look at a human being as a collection of symptoms, a chart to be updated, a body to be stabilized. But room 402 has changed the very air I breathe. Behind that heavy, soundproof door lies a patient who has systematically dismantled every defense I've ever built. As I approach the threshold, the sharp, biting scent of antiseptic hangs in the corridor, a sterile reminder of my duty. But the moment I push the door open, that scent is utterly swallowed by something far more intoxicating. Isabella Sterling, a woman whose name usually dominates financial headlines, is reclining in a bed of high thread count silk she insisted on bringing herself. The room is bathed in a soft ethereal blue moonlight filtering through the large windows, casting long jagged shadows across the polished equipment. The air is thick with her signature perfume, a dark, expensive blend of jasmine and sandalwood that feels entirely out of place in a hospital. I stand there for a heartbeat too long, the snap of my latex gloves sounding like a gunshot in the stillness. I can see the outline of her body beneath the thin silk sheets, a silhouette of grace even in her supposed vulnerability. Her blonde hair is a pale spill across the pillows, and her eyes, even in the shadows, find mine with a precision that makes my breath hitch. I am here to perform a routine checkup, to be the silent caretaker, the invisible hand of medicine. But as I step into the blue glow, my pulse begins a frantic, uneven rhythm. Isabella doesn't say a word, she doesn't have to. The way she watches me, tracking every movement of my hands, the way my chest rises and falls beneath my scrubs, tells me she knows exactly what she's doing to me. I reach for the 4-stand, my fingers brushing against the cold metal, but all I can feel is the heat radiating from her. I tell myself I am safe behind my title and my uniform. I tell myself that this is just another chart to update, another patient to stabilize. But as I lean over her to check the drip, our faces are suddenly terrifyingly close. In the depths of her amber eyes, I see a reflection of a desire I've tried so hard to bury. It is a moment of pure, unadulterated static. I realize then, with a jolt that nearly makes me drop my clipboard, that the real threat in room 402 isn't her recovery or a sudden drop in blood pressure. The danger in this room isn't medical, it's personal. The routine is my only sanctuary, a sequence of learned behaviors that should keep the world at bay. I move to the side of the bed, the silk sheets rustling with a sound that feels overly loud in the quiet room. I reach for Isabella's wrist, my fingers finding the delicate pale skin where her pulse should be steady and professional. Instead, the beat I find is wild, a trapped thing thrumming against my fingertips with a frantic intensity that mirrors my own internal chaos. I am supposed to count the seconds to record the data, but I find myself lingering, my thumb tracing the slight curve of her radius. Her skin is hot, a fever that has nothing to do with infection. I can feel her gaze on me, tracing the line of my jaw, looking for the cracks in my clinical mask. "Is something wrong, Elena?" she asks, her voice a low melodic rasp that vibrates in the small space between us. I don't answer immediately, I can't. I reach for my stethoscope, the cold metal feeling like a brand against my palm. I move closer, the scent of her jasmine becoming an overwhelming cloud that makes my head swim. I press the diaphragm of the stethoscope against her chest, right over the swell of her heart, separated only by the thin, translucent silk of her gown. Through the earpieces, the sound is deafening, a heavy rhythmic drum that tells the story of a desire she isn't even trying to hide. I am so close now that I can feel the warmth of her breath against my cheek, a soft, humid caress that makes the air in my lungs feel like lead. My hand is steady, but inside, I am a storm of conflicting impulses. I move the stethoscope, my knuckles accidentally brushing against the soft valley of her cleavage, a contact so brief it should be meaningless. But Isabella hitches her breath, a small jagged sound that shatters the silence. The heart monitor accelerates, its electronic chirp becoming a frantic warning. I am the one with the medical degree, the one in the blue scrubs, the one who is supposed to be the master of this interaction. But as she leans back against the pillows, her lips slightly parted, her eyes dark with a hunger that defies the setting, I am forced to confront the power shift. I look at her, my hand still resting inches from her heart, and I find myself wondering, in this room with the moonlight and the jasmine and the heavy, humid weight of the unspoken, who is really in control of the room? If you are feeling the tension between them, please leave a like and subscribe to Meeting Her. Tell me in the comments, Which city are you watching this story from? The storm outside finally breaks, a violent outburst of wind and rain that makes the hospital windows rattle in their frames. It is a chaotic backdrop to the escalating tension inside room 402. Suddenly, the lights flicker, once, twice, and then the room is plunged into a deep, heavy shadow as the main power fails. For a long, agonizing minute, the only light is the dim, ominous red glow of the emergency lamps, casting a hellish, intimate hue over everything. I was in the middle of checking her surgical site, my hands already deep in her personal space, when the darkness swallowed us. The red light turns her skin into something ethereal, something forbidden. Isabella doesn't flinch. She doesn't call for help. She simply waits, her breathing audible over the roar of the rain. The forced proximity is no longer a choice, it is a destiny. I find myself pressed against the side of her bed, my body leaning over hers to steady myself as the wind slams against the building. The scent of her jasmine mixes with the ozone of the storm, creating a sensory overload that finally snaps my restraint. I can feel the silk of her gown against the rough fabric of my scrubs, her breasts pressing against mine as she reaches out to grab my waist. "Elena," she whispers, her voice a raw confession that bypasses my brain and goes straight to my soul. I should pull away. I should go to the nurse's station, find a flashlight, and act like the professional I am. But the weight of her touch is a gravity I cannot escape. Her fingers dig into the blue fabric of my uniform, pulling me an inch closer, until our noses are touching. The red light reflects in her eyes, making her look like a goddess of the night. I can feel the heat of her breath against my lips, a humid promise of everything I've denied myself. The professional mask I've worn for a decade doesn't just crack, it vanishes, leaving me raw and desperate in her arms. I reach out, my hand cupping her jaw, my thumb tracing the curve of her lower lip. The silence is no longer clinical, it is heavy with the anticipation of a collision 2 weeks in the making. The heart monitor, running on backup battery, emits a low, steady drone that feels like a countdown. I look at her, my heart hammering so hard I'm sure it's the only thing she can hear. At that exact moment, as her lips finally brush against mine in a kiss that tastes of salt and sandalwood, the professional mask finally shatters. The aftermath of the kiss is a landscape of heat and jasmine, a world where the only thing that matters is the weight of her body against mine. The power returns, the bright, clinical lights of the room flicking on with a harshness that feels like an intrusion. But we don't pull apart. I am sitting on the edge of the bed, Isabella's arms still wrapped tightly around my neck, her head resting on my shoulder. The scent of her jasmine is now a part of my uniform, a mark of the secret we now share. The powerful woman who arrived here in a silk shroud is now vulnerable in my arms, her heart still racing against my chest. I look at the monitors, the green lines finally steadying, and I realize that the most important healing didn't happen through a needle or a pill. It happened in the dark. But there is a weight to this intimacy, a heavy pressure of the unsaid that follows us into the dawn. I trace the line of her collarbone, my fingers moving with a possessive boldness I never knew I possessed. We are bound by a secret that the hospital walls cannot contain, a desire that has redefined the power dynamic of room 402. I am her caretaker, yes, but I am also the only person who knows the fire that lives beneath her perfect, blonde exterior. The ivory silk of her nightgown is wrinkled under my touch, a tangible proof of the moment we just crossed. I can feel her pulse under my palm, no longer frantic but deep and resonant, as if her heart has finally found its anchor. I lean back just enough to look at her, my face inches from hers, the anticipation of the next touch a physical ache in my chest. Her amber eyes are fixed on mine, searching for any sign of regret, but all she finds is the reflection of her own hunger. The professional distance I used to prize feels like a relic of a different life, a lie I can no longer tell myself. We are suspended in a moment of intense face-to-face physical anticipation, knowing that the world is waiting outside that door to take us back to our roles. I can feel the heat of her skin against mine, a shared fever that no medicine can cure. The room is quiet again, but the silence has changed. It is no longer hollow, it is thick with the gravity of what we are to each other. I am her nurse, and she is my patient, but in the ruins of the night, we have become something far more dangerous. We have become a secret. The morning sun is a brilliant, unforgiving light that reflects off the white tiles of the hallway, demanding that the world return to its proper order. I enter room 402 for the morning rounds, my blue scrubs straightened, my stethoscope in place, but I feel like a stranger in my own skin. Isabella is sitting up, her laptop open on her knees, her blonde hair perfectly styled, the mask of the powerful CEO firmly back in place. To anyone else, she looks like a patient recovering with remarkable speed. But as I move toward the bed, our eyes meet, and for a split second, the mask slips. I see the heat, the secret, the shared fever that still burns in the depths of her gaze. I reach for her wrist to check her pulse, a gesture we've performed 100 times. But this time, her fingers interlock with mine under the cover of the silk sheets, a silent grounding touch that tells me she isn't letting go. The power dynamic has shifted forever. I am no longer just her nurse, and she is no longer just my patient. We are something else entirely, something for which there are no charts or protocols. The loop has begun, a cycle of professional duty by day and a desperate forbidden hunger by night. We will play the game, we will exchange orders and medical data, but the air between us will always be charged with the memory of the storm. Every time I walk past her door, I feel the pull of the gravity we created. The cliffhanger isn't when she'll be discharged, it's what happens when she leaves and the clinical walls are no longer there to hide us. I walk out of the room, looking back over my shoulder one last time to see her watching me, biting her lip in a way that tells me the next checkup can't come soon enough. I am the woman who saved her, but she is the woman who set me on fire. The cycle of forbidden desire resets, and I am ready to burn with her again. This was only the beginning. If you missed the other stories on the channel, click on the video appearing on your screen right now. And get ready, because the next meeting will be even more intense. See you soon.